McKay here. Two matters of housekeeping before we start the podcast. First, to let you all know, we've recently switched podcast hosting from Podbean to SoundCloud.com. So you can find us now on SoundCloud.com/artofmanliness. If you've been using our Podbean RSS, you'll need to make that switch over to the SoundCloud if you haven't already. We did some things so it should have happened automatically, but if it didn't, you need to go ahead and do that manually. And one of the benefits of being on SoundCloud is you can find all of our podcasts from the very beginning there. I've had a lot of complaints or questions from people saying, where can I find your episodes, the first 20 episodes that you did, and you couldn't find them on Podbean, but they're all there on SoundCloud. So it's soundcloud.com/artofmanliness. Second item of housekeeping is we're going to start having sponsorships for the podcast. So in the next few episodes, you might start hearing some little sponsorship blurbs before and perhaps during the podcast. We're going to do our best to make sure that we only get sponsors that are relevant to Art of Manliness listeners, and we're going to do our best to make sure they don't interrupt the podcast too much. And hopefully with the revenue that we start generating with the podcast, because we haven't up until now, we can do some things to improve the quality of the podcast, how it sounds. I've had a few complaints about that, so I need to buy some equipment, and things like that. So hopefully it'll help things out in the long run. But, we've always appreciated your support. So thank you for listening. And that's it. Let's do this. Brett McKay here, and welcome to another edition of the Art of Manliness podcast. Now, if you haven't been living under a rock, you've probably heard of these mud runs that are sweeping the country. It's basically where people get together and they do a race, but there's obstacles in mud. They jump over fire, they crawl under barbed wire, they climb over giant walls. They're a lot of fun. And one of the more popular mud races is the Spartan Race. I mean, it just has a passionate following, people who will travel around the world just to do a race. And our guest today is the founder of the Spartan Race. His name is Joe DeSena, and he lives in lovely Vermont, one of my dream places to go, hopefully live one day. Anyways, he's come out with a new book called Spartan Up, a Take No Prisoner's Guide to Overcoming Obstacles and Achieving Peak Performance in Life. And it's basically the story of obstacles that he's overcome personally and obstacles he's overcome to start the Spartan Race. And then he sort of lays out a philosophy, a Spartan Up philosophy that others can follow to overcome obstacles and turn those obstacles into victories. Really good book. We're going to talk about what it means to Spartan Up. We're going to talk about mud races, the future of mud racing, and we're going to talk about how to overcome challenges. So stay tuned. Joe DeSena, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so you started the Spartan Race, this thing that's kind of taken the country by storm. But before we get talking about that, the world, yeah, let's talk a bit about before the Spartan Race, because that's really interesting. You did a lot of adventure races and endurance events. And in fact, you started your book, the Spartan Up, about this grueling endurance event you were doing in the snow, and it was horrible. I was just like, I can't believe you did this. But what drew you to those types of activities? Were you like, when you were a kid, were you like super active and like adventurous, or was there something that compelled you to start doing that sort of thing?
It's funny because I spent a lot of time thinking about that. Obviously, we're writing the book, and now that we have 4 children, what drove me, or what drives me? And I would say you're a product of your environment. And so my mom was the ultimate Spartan, meditating, yoga, fasting for 30 days at a clip, which is insane in and of itself. Teaching my sister and I at a young age about long distance running. There was a race in, not really a race, more of a run, in Flushing, Queens. That's a 3,000 mile run around a 1 mile loop. So you can imagine, I think it's called the Transcendence Run. You can imagine how you've got to get your mind focused to do 3,000 loops in a 1 mile loop. So growing up around her, and then growing up around my dad, who was the ultimate entrepreneur, was just a maniac, 24/7, cared less about his health and wellness and just more about printing money and running businesses. You grow up around that. You throw in a couple of masons, like guys that actually build rock walls and brick walls, and welders, and those are the people I grew up around. And you start to build this character as a person that just get it done. And so that's been my DNA from the start.
And so you took that and you saw these adventure races and endurance events, and you're like, that's something I can take this sort of DNA that I have and, I don't know, express it, right?
Well, not to take anything away from how tough those endurance races were, especially the one that we talk about in the beginning of the book, because that was miserable. If you own your own business and that business happens to include physical labor, everything that can go wrong will go wrong. And it is a endurance race on steroids running a business like that. And so we did construction. We had 700 customers. I was a young guy. We had a bunch of trucks. Who doesn't show up for work? What truck breaks down? Customers screaming, you name it. We had our share of problems on a daily basis. So as crazy as this sounds, going and spending 8 or 10 days in 30 below weather, from that is a vacation. I mean, it's terrible and it hurts, but it's a vacation.
Yeah, I've noticed that in my own life, like it's the grind, right? Every day, it's not really that hard, but it just grinds you down. But like getting out into the woods and doing a hike, or doing an obstacle race, for some reason that just energizes me. It's sort of counterintuitive.
It clears your mind, right? Because what I like to describe to people is all the things that are unimportant, right? The things you're asking about that make you upset and stress you out, they all go away. And when you get to the place, it might be on day 1, day 2, day 3, at some point I would get to a place where I just want water, food, and shelter. And when you get there, that's very refreshing, because it's like nothing else matters.
Okay, so you did all these endurance events, and you were just in your DNA is to be gritty and look for challenges. So how did the idea for the Spartan Race come up? Was it something you wanted to do for yourself, or was it like, I want to share this with other people?
I think it was more of a share. I think we were really interested in, can we toughen other people up? Again, going back to owning your own business, and a lot of this philosophy and the book comes from owning my own business. You get frustrated when you hire people, right? And you hire those people and they don't show up for work. They don't work as hard as you'd like. But then you find some great ones. Mm-hmm. And for me, especially when we were running businesses that required physical labor, those were people typically from another country, and typically from a country where they had a tough upbringing. And so you see those people versus us, Americans, and I can't even keep up with these guys or women. They outwork me any day of the week. And so that's embarrassing if you're an American, right? How do we toughen up our society, our culture? And so that's what was deep-rooted in the decision to start Spartan Race.
Yeah. So, is that what you hope people get out of the Spartan? Like, they're going to go and they're going to have a good experience. It's fun, right? You get to roll around the mud and do obstacles and things like that. But what is it you really, is it just you want people to toughen up, or is there something else you want people to get out of your races?
Yeah, toughen up is one part of it. And the thing that we're most interested in, is changing people's frame of reference. So going back to the example I just gave of let's get back to water, food, and shelter as the only things we desire, right? When you're out on that race, if you can get to that place, well, when the kid's screaming, or the coffee's too cold, or the car doesn't start, or any of the things we deal with on a daily basis that in the proper frame of reference are no big deal, but in the wrong frame of reference are a disaster that set us off, and we start fights in our relationships over them. Your life becomes better. The world becomes a better place if we can get everybody in the right frame of reference. And I think in our current world, which is awesome, right, to have all the abundance we have, I just look at my dog, right? We're animals just like my dog. My dog got lost. We were 24 hours into it. We live within 30,000 acres of land here, so finding a dog is like finding the plane that we still haven't found, right?
Yeah, my wife and I, we call Vermont like dog heaven. It's like where every dog probably wants to be.
Yeah, so my dog's gone. Can't find her. She's got a leash on, and I call up an expert that's got tracking bloodhounds. And I said, look, I'm concerned the dog is probably going to get stuck with the leash on a log or something. I'll be out there hiking a year from now, and I'll find a bag of bones tied to a leash, and I'm going to lose my my stuff. So this is most interesting to me. The woman on the other end of the phone says, don't worry, 2 days into it, that dog will go back to being an animal and will chew through the leash. And that's really interesting to me because she's forgotten. She's behind me right now. You can't see her, this dog. She's forgotten how to be an animal, right? We've forgotten how to be animals. And certainly being an animal has some negatives, but it's got some massive positives too. You just become more gritty, a term you've used. You've got proper frames of reference. You really understand what's important and what's not. And so I think we need more of that. I think the whole world has gone through this evolution of faster, easier, better. And Spartan Race really is an attempt that maybe that's not better. Maybe faster and easier is not better. Maybe delaying gratification is better. Maybe making it a little harder on ourselves is better. So that's what this is about.
Yeah. I guess maybe that's one of the questions I had was, why do you think there's like this sudden uptick in interest in like the Spartan race and like sort of this philosophy that you're espousing in your book? I mean, there's other obstacle races and sort of these tough challenges, and like people are paying money to like be physically miserable, right, for a couple hours.
We're really authentic. I think in our DNA, like it comes through. This is not just a business for us. But on the whole, why people are participating is because it feels really good.
Yeah.
And it's addictive. And I know because I got addicted to it. You clearly got addicted to it. And so you get out there and you do it. And you can't recreate the feeling of being in the woods and sweating and getting your heart pounding. And you can't recreate that in a gym. So one, it feels really good. Two, I think we're very authentic. And three, let's not forget social media. Social media has really changed the playing field for something to go viral. In the old days, the horse and carriage had to move that message from town to town. Now it moves at the speed of light.
Yeah. Okay. So I think we might get a little ahead of ourselves. There might be some people, for some reason, who've been living under a rock, who don't know what a Spartan race is or what a mud run is. Can you kind of walk us through, like, what you put people through in your obstacle courses? Yeah.
So it's a military inspired event. You're going to crawl under barbed wire, preferably for a long time. That's my signature obstacle. You're going to climb over walls because most of us have stronger lower bodies than we do upper bodies, so that's going to be miserable getting up and over walls over and over. You're going to climb rope, again, another nightmare for many people, climbing a 15, 20-foot rope. You're going to go over cargo nets and deal with your fear of heights. You're going to jump over fire. Sounds silly, but lots of people have issues with getting too close to fire. You're certainly going to deal with the elements of, earth, mud, water, and have to get dirty, which it's been instilled in us for, since we were kids, not to get dirty, not to soil our clothes. But those obstacles in succession, and you competing with 9,900 other people to your left and right, transforms you. I remember we took in investors, I think 3 or 4 years into this business, and I remember sitting down with the investors and we're talking about the brand. What is the brand? What is the message? Mm-hmm. And I said, we transform lives. And the investors said, well, I don't know if that's really a message you want to go out with, because I don't think people want their lives transformed. I don't know about that, because I get an email every single day, if not 20 of them, that say, hey, you changed my life. I lost 145 pounds, or I'm eating healthy, or I have new friends, or I'm going to bed early, I'm waking up early. So this idea, this platform we've created, changes lives.
Yeah, that was one of the things I loved about reading these stories in your book about people who have started doing Spartan races. And yeah, the Spartan race is not just the race. There's sort of like it's a lifestyle, right? And you just mentioned a few examples of people who lost weight, but was there a story in particular of someone whose life just completely transformed for the better because of Spartan?
Well, I'll give you two. I'll give you one of my craziest ones, and well, they're both crazy. But this first one, I'm at our race in New York, Tuxedo Ridge. It's a ski resort. And a guy missing his teeth, looking very scruffy and beaten up, comes up to me and says, I want you to know you changed my life. That part's not weird because I get that all the time. This is where it gets weird. He says, I'm driving my pickup truck and I hear an advertisement on the radio for Spartan Race. And for whatever reason, it strikes a chord. At this moment in time, he says, I'm addicted to drugs and alcohol, and I've been addicted to them for a long time. I stop the truck, I go into the woods, and I don't come out of the woods for 30 days, he says. I live in the woods. Now who knows if he was just like drunk or high, but he's in the woods for 30 days, according to him. He catches his own fish, cleans himself up, and he had just gotten out of the woods and was doing the race. So there's an extreme example of a crazy transformation. Chris Davis got roped into doing a Spartan sprint, I believe in Georgia. Someone roped him into it saying it was just a 5K. He had no idea it included obstacles. It took him 7 hours to complete, 3.5 miles. He was 696 pounds.
Whoa.
He had been eating drinking two 2-liter Sprites, eating 8 Egg McMuffins every day just for breakfast. I got a hold of him. We talked to his company that he worked for, Comcast. They allowed him to take a leave of absence. He moved to Vermont. And when he left Vermont, he weighed 268 pounds or something like that. So there's another extreme example of a transformation.
That's amazing. I'm impressed that he was able to finish that, the 5K.
Yeah, unbelievable.
I mean, talk about he had the mental resilience, the mental fortitude, and it just needed to.
I think he was afraid he was going to die on the course, and he just had to get home.
All right, so your book, it's called Spartan Up. What do you mean when you tell people like you need a Spartan up? Because I've heard, you hear man up and like cowboy up. I mean, what does Spartan up mean?
So you've been to the airport where somebody's completely losing their cool on like the check-in woman for the airline over an extra $20 fee.
Yeah.
I mean, going nuts right in front of their family. Or for me, I like to road cycle where a pickup truck drives by and honks and throws something at you because you're 3 inches in the road further than you should be on your bike, and that caused this person a massive inconvenience. That's unacceptable behavior in our society. And that stems from this bubble-wrapped life we all live in. And so Spartaning up to us means get over the BS. Stop complaining about the small stuff and focus on what really matters, right? Add a little grit to your life. It's not so bad. One of the things I like to do for myself, and I tell people, is when things are bad, because things are going to be bad every day, you're going to have some problem. You just got to say, well, it could be, right? It could be snowing. I could have got struck by lightning. I could be, God forbid, missing a leg. The other day I ran out of it could be's, and I just said, well, I could be dead because I'd already reached the level of could be's.
Was there something from your your past that drew you to the Spartans? Like, because we're really on the Art of Manliness, we write a lot about Roman and Greek history. So I'm interested, like, what drew you to Sparta? This is not my favorite reason behind some of it, but I grew up in Queens, and the neighborhood I grew up in was organized crime capital of the world. So as a kid, the people we aspired to be as kids were the guys with all the money, and the guys that had all the money were these organized crime figures. And the conversations about those people were, could you do the time? You can't be a rat, and it had all this discipline associated with it. And then obviously you grow up a little more, you learn a little more, and you look to the military. They have an enormous amount of discipline associated with them. But when you really look at history, there's nobody like the Spartans when it comes to just discipline, making a commitment, and sticking to it. So yeah, I mean, whether it's a movie that inspires us, or a book, or just some fictitious character or an organized crime figure, it's usually around that unwavering discipline that individual, that character has, and there's nothing like Spartans when it comes to that. Definitely. I'm curious, what do you think is the future of like the Spartan race and obstacle races in general? Because I've been reading that insurance companies are kind of getting leery of them. States are talking about regulating them. I mean, is that something you guys are worried about, or is just the future bright? We take the sport pretty seriously. Unlike many of our competitors, we don't add obstacles that don't have an athletic or mental. They have to be athletic in nature. We test them over and over. We've got judges on the course.
we started our own federation. We'll be launching it probably in the next two plus months. That will regulate all our races around the globe. So I think states, insurance companies have very little issue with the way we run our events. Will people get hurt? Of course they will, but they get hurt running marathons, 5Ks, walking across the street. As long as we take the measures we're taking and treat it as seriously. Again, for us, it's not a mud party. We're not looking to get everybody drunk.
Yeah.
That's just it's not our scene. There are very good economics associated with throwing a lot of mud and beer at people. That's just not us. Mm-hmm. So.
Well, good. I think I read somewhere this could possibly be an Olympic event. Is that something that you guys are shooting for? That's
our plan. Yeah. We've already had some preliminary talks with the IOC and getting process in place. And who knows how long it'll take. But if curling and ping pong are in there, we can get in there.
That's awesome. Well, I'd love to see that. That'd be a lot of fun to watch the mud races or a Spartan race on the Olympics. I mean, one thing I like to do in these podcasts is, ask the person who I'm interviewing sort of like just like a practical takeaway that, people who are listening to this right now can do to apply the principle that they're preaching or advocating in their book or whatever. So, I mean, men who are listening right now, what can they do today to start like Spartaning up their own life?
Well, so you've heard of the cookie test, right? In the 1960s.
Yeah.
So that's delaying gratification, not taking the cookie now and waiting for 2 cookies later. And so I would say the first thing you could do, whoever's listening out there, is start by waking up early in the morning and not taking the cookie, not hitting the snooze button. Step 1 is commit. I'm going to work out and sweat. Working out could mean a lot of things. You're going to sweat every morning for at least 30 minutes. For different people, that means different things. That could be a walk up a hill. That could be taking the garbage out. Whatever it is, you're going to commit to 30 minutes every morning before work. That one little thing will start to change your life, because what it'll do is it'll put you to bed earlier, because you got to wake up early. You'll probably drink a little less. Everybody that sips a little wine, has a little beer, whatever. You know what? I got to wake up early and do my workout. I'm not gonna do that. You'll start watching what you eat. You might even start hanging out with new friends that are waking up early. So one little thing that has a massive domino effect, I would say, is wake up early and work out.
Awesome. Well, Joe, where can people find more about your book?
So spartanupthebook.com.
Awesome. So everyone go check that out. It's a great read, very inspirational. I got a lot out of it. Well, Joe DeSena, thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
Our guest today was Joe DeSena. Joe is the founder of the Spartan Race and author of the book Spartan Up. You can find Joe's book on Amazon.com for pre-order. He's also created a special discount for AOM podcast listeners. If you go to bit.ly/AOM Spartan, go through the order process and enter in the discount code Manliness, MANLINESS. You'll get a 10% discount off of your pre-order. So go ahead and pick it up. Until next time, this is Brett McKay telling you to stay manly.